Hi there folks, this is Tim from Racing Central with a video of unboxing, and these are some retro titles called IndyCar Racing, the IndyCar Circuits expansion pack for IndyCar Racing, and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway expansion pack for IndyCar Racing. So this is the front cover of the 1.0 release. It has a Newman Haas car on the foreground and in the background. Putting it side by side here with the later release, which has Stefan Johansson on the front cover, it also has the Championship Drivers Group logo on the side. Here's a side-by-side comparison. I'll probably change that cover art due to licensing issues. Nothing else actually seems different on the design here, just maybe slight changes here and there. Obviously developed by Papyrus. Feel free to pause to read any of the text if you wish to. On the back here you can actually see a Virgin logo, and they must have helped with publishing in some way, even though all later titles they actually have Sierra on them, including later versions of IndyCar Racing, which has the same cover art. I assume Virgin kind of helped in some way with the publishing that made them down there. But all of the documentation actually says Papyrus Publishing, so I actually thought that they had self-published this. But it appears not. Maybe Virgin helped. Here's a better look at the back of the box. Feel free to pause and read any of the text. There's the system requirements. And opening this up here, we have an envelope with everything inside it. All of the IndyCar titles actually had a similar envelope like that. And we have the manual floppy disks. These are 3.5-inch floppy disks. And it's version 1.03, and the earlier version with the Newman Haas car on the front is not 1.03, it's actually 1.0. Okay, so getting those out the way. We have the manual and all of these inserts here. These are fairly standard for the period. You would have these attention cards with basically information on it that they basically rightly assumed that people would not read the manual. So they tried to put these important things on here so that they would try to quickly give people the best experience they could. And this is an addendum to the manual, so obviously it's cheaper to print a single page than it is to reprint an entire manual. This is fantastic stuff with so much information. This is a nice quick reference card. Obviously at this point a lot of the driver views, menu controls, everything was changed with keys. You have installation information. Great in-depth instructions really that were required back then. So this is a warranty card, and it's interesting seeing Massachusetts there. Papyrus were always based there, Dave Kamers from there, and obviously iRacing, which is his new company, is still based there. And here we have a Thrustmaster Formula T1, which was the best wheel or best selling wheel of the time, and this is their flight hardware. Something that's quite interesting here is actually the address here. So this is to buy something from Thrustmaster, and then this is to register buying IndyCar Racing with Papyrus, and it's the same address. So I am not really sure whether that means that Thrustmaster was located in the same building, or whether it means that Papyrus was selling wheels on behalf of Thrustmaster at one point. And here, looking through this manual here, this is going to make you feel bad for the state of instruction manuals, or the lack of them, in modern day stuff. Just really amazing how much actual information there is here. So these days, you kind of thrust in there with what in many ways is more complicated software, more complicated cars and tracks to drive, and you're just kind of left to it these days. That's kind of a shame. Yeah, look at this. This is a fantastic track profile for Long Beach. You can see the history of the track, how to drive it successfully. It really helped you get the best out of the software. And this was a period where you didn't take software back. You had to get the best out of it that you could, get your money's worth, whether you loved or hated it. So they've done everything they can to really help you get the best out of the software, including setup here, which really it's still relevant today. Especially if you're racing a similar kind of car on iRacing rFactor 2, whichever your chosen simulation is. A lot of these setup changes, a lot of the racecraft information, the understanding of oval racing and things like that, it's all still relevant. Yeah, just amazing information. There's obviously the history of IndyCar racing in there. Not that that's needed, but it's just fantastic that it's there. On the left-hand side, it's quite nice. You actually have some basic modding information. Really, that is actually quite important in itself, because in this day and age, you had in this game, you would have certain drivers, certain teams that really did not want to be included, did not want to be licensed, and you would have to add them yourself, which is why sites like Sim Cyberworld, the US Pits, that would release car sets and modding tools, that's how they grew up. That's how they got so big. So here we have, yeah, the replay cut utility, the print utility, and so it wasn't just the 7 tracks in this pack here. Burke Lakefront Airport, though, Mid-Ohio, Vancouver, Phoenix, Road America, Surfers Paradise in Australia, and Belle Isle Park, which is still raced on today in Michigan. And obviously you needed IndyCar racing because this is an expansion pack. So I'm going to open this up here. So this has never been opened, obviously. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is because I want Racing Central to, as well as having modern day news, I want it to be kind of a museum. And the best way to have a museum is to put your artifacts on display. And that's what I'm actually doing here. So there's going to be scans of all of this done, and I'll post them all online. But you can also pause and read any of this on this video if you want to. Still see Papyrus Publishing Inc. and also see Virgin as well. So they're still helping in whatever way they were helping. Maybe they outsourced some publishing stuff to Virgin. So IndyCar Racing was released in 1993. Registration card. No idea really what they did with all of that information from those registration cards. It must have been a hell of a filing cabinet. Here's the version 1.0 discs. I'm not sure if there was a later version of the track pack. And here's the manual with the tracks. Again, it's quite a thick manual. You know, it's an expansion pack. It's just 7 tracks and a couple of utilities, but it's still... Oh yeah, there's so there's the copyright date, 1994. So this must have been released the following calendar year after the main game. And here you can see some of the names involved. Dave Kamer, obviously, who went on to found iRacing, and Steve Vandergriff, who did, I think, most of the manuals for Papyrus. So the only other thing that I kind of notice on the bottom here is Matt Senthal, who Grand Prix Legends racers might actually recognize that name because he was one of the first names to come up the screen on the credits for Grand Prix Legends. Obviously, he's been involved with Papyrus and sim racing a little bit longer than I actually thought. So you've got information on how to install the tracks. It tells you about the tools that they've included. A couple of new features there as well, but then we have these awesome track profiles yet again. You never see these today at all. And they put so much work into this, or Steve Vandergriff put so much work into this that it's a shame that nobody's actually reading this kind of stuff anymore with their DLC. Okay, so on to the big one now. This is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway expansion pack. And not many people had this, I think. It came with a few tools that were quite useful. The paint kit was quite cool, and I did use the replay cut utility a few times as well. So I'm going to open this up here. I'm kind of wondering if this may have been withdrawn from sale at some point, because really not many people had this at all, and it was the last time that a Papyrus title had Indianapolis until I think NASCAR Racing 4, which was maybe 7 or 8 years after this was released. So it's kind of a rarity, really. You can see some fantastic art on the cover there. You can see the Ganassi car in the back, Stefan Johansson, and then there's Emerson Fittipaldi in the race-winning Penske from 1993. See the Borg Warner trophy, the IMS logo. Feel free to pause to read the back here if you want to. And I still see Papyrus Publishing Inc. and Virgin mentioned. Obviously came again in the envelope in the same way as the other 2 boxes. It looks like there's a couple of inserts here. First of all, we have a Thrustmaster Formula T1 advertisement. This is the same kind of registration card as I've shown in one of the other boxes. And then the manual here with the same cover art. And it's a very, very thick manual for a single track. Version 1.05. I'm not sure if there was a previous version or a later version, or whether 1.05 was the only version ever released. But yeah, this is a really quite a thick manual. 1994 again. So next calendar year after the game. So this is fantastic. You've got this awesome introduction telling you about the history just of the Indy 500, why this track is important, and why it's an add-on, and it deserves probably what it was originally priced at. So I do recognize a few names here: Richard Garcia, David Kamer, Matt Marsala, perhaps. Yeah, okay. So installation information, and then basically we have this awesome track profile, the same as we've seen in the other manuals, and then how to actually do a lap, strategy, race day schedule, the winners list. And as you can see, Emerson Fittipaldi won in 1993, as I said. That's why he's on the cover. How to use the paint car kit. Really in-depth instructions. So miss those in this day and age. This is interesting. I did notice that in the last manual, but I didn't really think time acceleration was in a simulation this early on. Replay editor and how to use it. Print utility. And torque mode, which is that's kind of another feature that I didn't really realize was in simulations this early. So you can talk to another player. It's basically voice comms. Yeah, I really didn't realize that was in simulations this long ago. That's quite interesting to me. And I've actually learned a couple of new things just unboxing these titles. So I hope that was at least interesting. I'm going to do this with the rest of my collection, get them on display. Some of them are open, some of them are still sealed, but I'll do what I can. I think most of the inserts are still in there. But I hope this was interesting. This was IndyCar Racing, and this is Racing Central. Thanks. Bye-bye.